Have you ever sat in that heavy silence at a family dinner? Here on Women's Life Stories, we retell those moments, honest, everyday, sometimes controversial. Every story is a mirror. Subscribe, join the conversation, and maybe find a little healing. I am not helpless. I say that out loud in my kitchen when the house is too quiet and the afternoon heat lays over San Angelo like a wool blanket. The radio on the counter murmurs a Rangers game I'm not really listening to. Sunlight breaks into squares across the linoleum and dust glitters in the air the way it always has in this place. 40 years of mornings and afternoons and grocery lists and book club flyers tacked to the fridge. I'm 70 years old, retired from the public library, and I know where everything is in this house by sound. The back door hinge has a polite squeak. The pantry clicks twice. The attic fan coughs before it settles into its hum. A life has a music when you've kept it going this long. Daniel arrives with Avery and her mother Marla like they're a team on a mission. They smell like the perfume counters at Dillard's, and the air outside the mall, artificial flowers and cold air, and something that wants to be new. He kisses the top of my head and calls me Mom, in the bright voice he used when he was 10 and angling for a second helping of peach cobbler. I hold on to the warmth of it for a second, the way you hold a match in the wind. We found a place, he says, laying glossy photos on the table. Open floor plan, granite. A fence line so straight it looks ironed. Avery talks fast about safety and convenience, about a community pool and an HOA that doesn't allow unsightly yard clutter. Marla sits straight-backed, hands folded around her purse like it contains a Bible or a grenade. It's a modern solution, Marla says. You shouldn't be alone in an old house, Nora. One bad fall and I'm not helpless, I say again, this time to people who can answer. Avery's smile is beautiful and fixed. We'd be right there with you. Think of it as easing your load. They ask about the will, about the cost of replacing the roof. I've already had replaced about the steps up from the driveway that Daniel used to run in 2 leaps about the ladder. I won't climb anymore to dust the top shelves in the den. Daniel's hand circles my wrist thumb, rubbing a spot of thin skin. It's for your own good, Mom. The iced tea is Avery's idea. With lemon and a splash of honey, she says, online influencer cheerful like we're filming a segment. The glass she sets in front of me sweats rings onto the table I once stripped and refinished with my late husband on a Sunday afternoon while Daniel watched cartoons with his cereal bowl balanced on his knees. The first sip is sweet. The second has a little metal in it. The taste old pipes give water when the city's been working on the line. I swallow anyway. I was raised to be polite and the habit's in my bones. We should drive now, Daniel says, checking his watch as if there's a schedule I agreed to. We can be back by dark. We'll bring you back with a new picture of the future, Marla adds. And that's when I catch the look that flashes between her and Avery, something too quick to pin down, as if a card switched hands under the table. I change shoes and find my purse. On the way out, I run my fingers along the door jamb where Daniel at 4 once drew his height in crayon, and then tried to hide it with a sticker of a dinosaur. The mark is still there, pale under fresh paint. The heat out on the driveway is a hand on the back of your neck. Daniel drives. Avery rides up front, adjusting the air vents until they hit her just so. Marla takes the back seat with me and asks questions that settle like coins in the bottom of a jar weighted precise. Do you have a trusted financial advisor, Nora? Have you considered a power of attorney? We can take that paperwork off your plate. San Angelo slides into scrub and pasture. By the time we hit I-10, the sky is a hard blue with a white seam at the horizon. I watch the mile markers in the parade of tankers and pickups, the metal skin of Texas moving west on errands of its own. My tongue feels too big in my mouth. I press my fingers to my pulse and wonder if I'm coming down with something, or if the tea is just stronger than it tastes. We'll cut down by... Marfa, Daniel says, cheerful-headed toward a future that looks to him like the photos on my kitchen table. We pass a rest area where an older couple eats sandwiches under a pecan tree. I think I could be that woman unwrapping wax paper telling her husband about the book she's reading. The thought drifts away before I can hold it. Conversation stutters and stops. The sun tilts. Shadows begin to lengthen across the highway like long, careful fingers. I close my eyes for a second, just a second, and when I open them, the world has changed. We're off the interstate now. The asphalt narrowed to 2 lanes, the emptiness around us so complete it hums. A sign flashes by, green and white, US 90 numbers marching toward nowhere. The land is thorns and ochre dirt, and the kind of sky that makes your chest feel hollow. Quick detour, Daniel says lightly. Shorter this way. The next sip of tea tastes like lemon skins. I put the glass down and watch my son's profile, the jaw I've kissed after piano recitals, the neck that once flushed red with fevers. I cooled with washcloths. He is older now than his father ever got to be. I realize I've been counting his breaths the way I used to when he slept in a crib. We drive until the radio turns to static and then to silence. There are no billboards here, no gas stations, no houses tucked back behind windbreaks. The sun is lowering fast, and the land pulls its colors in like a creature bracing for night. Daniel slows and signals though there is no other car within sight. He pulls onto the shoulder near a stretch where the fence has fallen and the mesquite reaches crooked arms toward the road. "Hop out a second, Mom," he says, smiling and not smiling. Avery spilled tea on the map. We'll sort it. I look at the blank spot on the dashboard where no map has been. The door opens with a soft gasp of seal in summer. The heat hits like a field of hairdryers, and then almost at once the day cools as if someone turned a dial. My knees complain as my feet find the gravel. Avery brings a cold bottle of water and presses it into my hand with fingers that tremble in a way I can't read. "Back in a minute," Daniel says. "We just need to double-check a thing." He sets my small overnight bag beside me, the one with a toothbrush and a change of clothes, and a frame photo of my husband I always take when I expect to sleep in a strange bed. The car idles. The car idles. The car pulls forward, rolls into the westbound lane, and as if in a dream where your voice won't rise above a whisper, the taillights begin to move away. "Daniel," I say. The bottle of water is sweating into my palm. I can hear my own heart above the faint rasp of wind through dry grass. The engine note fades. The road takes back the space where a car was. "Daniel," I say again louder. The light at the horizon is the color of a cut peach. I count the seconds, 1, 2, 3, wait for brake lights, for the sheepish circle back, for a laugh and a... We forgot the map for anything, and the seconds keep going smooth as beads over a string. A coyote yips once and goes quiet. Heat leaves my shoulders. The world cools and tightens. The first star pricks through where the sky is deepest. There is no cell signal. My phone tries and fails, the little wheel chasing itself. The air smells like dust and sunburned creosote. Somewhere beyond the fence line, a grasshopper clicks a bone-dry sound like 2 nails tapping together. I set the overnight bag on the shoulder and lower myself onto it so I can think without my knees shouting. My mouth is dry from more than the heat. I take a small drink and screw the cap on tight. The tea clears out of my head in a slow departing tide, and what it leaves behind is clean and very simple. I am not helpless. The road runs east and west in a straight black ribbon. The mile marker up ahead is bent at a polite angle, numbers a little scabbed with dust. I say the numbers to myself because a number you say out loud becomes a fact you can hold, and I look both ways twice the way my father taught me when I learned to cross streets in a town where streets were the only danger worth naming. Far away, the sky over the west is losing color. The east is sharpening to blue. I stand. My body is a ledger of old complaints, knees hip that shoulder. I strained pulling down a box the year Daniel graduated high school, but it answers when I ask it to. I pick up the bag. I take one more sip of water, small as I can make it. I straighten the brim of my hat, a habit as automatic as breathing, and listen hard to the land until I can hear my own breath pace down to something steady. Then I step off the gravel and onto the warm blacktop, And the first thing my feet learn is that westbound and eastbound feel the same under your shoes until you make a choice. So I make one. The first 100 steps don't feel like walking. They feel like remembering how to move inside a body that has been lived in a long time. Heat still lives in the blacktop from the day. It rises into my soles and up my shins like a warning. The bag bumps my hip every few strides. I count without deciding to 40, 50, 60 to smooth the panic into something with edges. The mile marker ahead lists to one side, paint scab by grit 604. I say it out loud so it becomes mine. The sky over the west bruises into purples I don't have names for. The east sharpens to a thinner blue. I take a thumb-sized sip of water and screw the cap down until it bites. The chill from the bottle dampens my palm and then is gone. In the bar ditch, the creosote smells like a struck match that never caught. Wind presses the dry grass into a single direction. Somewhere out beyond the fence, a coyote barks twice and thinks better of it. I keep to the shoulder feet, finding the pale strip where the gravel packs firm. A rabbit freezes, then shoots into shadow whitetail like a blink. I listen for a car that isn't there, a low thread of engine coming up out of distance, and get only the soft rasp of my breath. It gets cold the way the door shuts, not all at once, but with certainty. I pull my light sweater tighter and put the hat's brim into the breeze. Every 20 steps, I feel my knee argue with me. Every 21, I tell it we're negotiating later. The tea haze keeps thinning. Behind it, thoughts line up in a librarian's order ration rest move. That's the whole list. A thin sound metal on stone stops me mid-step. To my right, not 5 feet away, a coiled shape holds the moonlight. The rattle buzzes, no theater in it, just information, and I freeze so completely the wind seems to blow past me instead of around me. We wait each other out. I take one breath, then another, and edge into the lane to give it the world and a little more. When I look back, it has become a knot of shadow that might have been a thought I had and forgot. Headlights smear the horizon. I turn and raise both arms, bag strap digging into my shoulder. The lights lift and drop and then thread themselves in a white ribbon to the far side of the world. I could be a fence post for all the difference I make. The dark settles more firmly on my shoulders. I tell myself a story about a woman who knows the names of stars and can find north by habit. The story isn't true, but it keeps my feet moving. I reach the next marker, 603, and say it too. The numbers are a handhold on a rock face with no cracks in it. Every so often, I stop and sit on the bag to let the fire drain out of my knees. I let the water touch my mouth and leave again. The sandwich in the bag stays wrapped. Hunger is a loose dog. Thirst is a rope. The rope matters. After a while, the road isn't only a road. It's also a sound, the low, even hum that comes up through my shoes and into my bones. When the wind dies, I can hear insects ticking like thin clocks in a thrift store. A line of cloud lifts itself over the west and eats 2 stars and leaves 1. For a few minutes, the smell of something green, maybe a ditch damp from a rare sprinkler, comes and goes. I keep walking. I don't notice the cold on my forearms until it isn't there anymore. The dark turns from black to charcoal to a color of the world that hasn't been named, and then to blue. The land appears again as if it has been rolled back out like a rug barbed wire mesquite, a shallow culvert cut at a neat angle into the dirt. My breath is a small machine that does what it's told. My feet have learned the road. In the first light, the mile marker shows me 602. My laugh is a short surprise thing that sounds like someone else's voice. By then, my hands shake if I hold them up to the thin morning. I find a low spill of rock by the culvert and sit with my back against it. When I lower myself, the world flashes white around the edges, a camera in my skull going off. I rest my head on the bag for the time it takes 2 birds I can't see to talk to each other twice. The cold that lived in the night leaks away. Heat begins to replace it in little patches on the road as if someone were ironing the desert piece by piece. The first engine I hear is a rumor, the second is a fact. I stand slower than dignity would like and move into the lane with both hands up again. This time the vehicle is not a rumor that goes someplace else. The hood rises and dips, and the whole shape of it, a long-nosed tractor sun-bleached red, with a silver grille too clean for this much dust, becomes a thing that takes up space. Air brakes whisper, hazard lights pop on strobing the mesquite. The rig stops 2 car lengths away and idles a big animal breathing on the other side of a fence. The driver leans across and cracks the passenger window a polite inch. A woman's voice, even wary, rides the engine. "You okay there, ma'am?" I nod because nodding is free. "I've been better. Stay where you are a second." Her eyes flick from my hands to the bag to the mile marker as if they are pieces of a test she has taken before. She steps down from the cab, one hand high and open the other on her phone. She is 50-ish hair in a braid ball cap with a feed store logo, boots polished by work. "Name's Raylene Ortiz," she says, keeping a sensible distance. "Gonna set a triangle behind us so nobody makes us flat." She walks to the back of the trailer with a fluorescent triangle, sets it, and returns with a small soft-sided cooler. "Water," she says, "but we're gonna go slow." Sips. "Like you're teaching a kid manners." I smile with more gratitude than I can afford to show and take the bottle she's opened. The first mouthful tries to run ahead. I pull it back. The second stays where it's put. Raylene's eyes are steady and kind, but not the kind that break. "You got someone coming." A car. Anything we ought to wait for. "My son," I say, and the word feels like a stone I didn't know I was carrying. "He said he'd be right back." I hear the sentence the way she does as it leaves my mouth. We both let it hang for a beat and then let it fall. "All right," she says. "You're 2 miles east of 604 on 90. Van Horn's closer than Marfa from here if you're on my wheels. I can get you to the clinic there. You good to climb." I can climb, I say, and I do one foot, then the other hands on the stainless grab bar, my body remembering ladders and library stacks and the way the world looks from a little higher up. Inside the cab, it smells like clean laundry and diesel and a hint of oranges from a mesh bag on the floorboard. A small plastic saint rides the dash on a square of Velcro. A dog-eared atlas with pages that don't believe in the internet sleeps in the pocket. Raylene turns the heat toward my knees and pulls a thin fleece from behind the seat. "Tuck that around," she says. "What's your name?" "Nora," I tell her. "Nora Whitaker." "Well, Ms. Nora, you're doing fine. Don't drink that whole bottle at once or your stomach will throw it back in your face and make me feel like a fool. We'll roll slow until we hit 10. When the tractor eases forward, the triangle in the mirror becomes a tiny bright idea against the shoulder and then is gone. The road takes us the way roads do, indifferent and available. We don't talk much, which is a grace. The world outside is everything I've lived in all my life, and some of what I haven't, like coming up behind a line of telephone poles like notes on a staff, a hawk riding the morning with nothing but its own attention, to hold it there, the kind of emptiness people pay to visit without understanding it's not for sale. At the edge of Van Horn, the truck sighs into a lot behind a 1-story clinic with a shade pavilion and a Coke machine that has survived 3 paint schemes. Raylene kills the engine and the silence after is round and full. She comes round to the passenger side before I can prove anything and offers an arm without pressing it on me. I take it because I'm sensible. Inside, the air is cold and the light is the color of clean. A nurse with soft authority touches my wrist and finds the beat that has kept me going. Her voice runs warm water over everything triage, ice chips, and IV. "You're going to be all right." My sweater leaves my shoulders. A blood pressure cuff holds my arm the way a child once did in church when he didn't want to be told to sit still. The world narrows to what is in front of me, a plastic chair, a sheet of forms, a pen that writes the first time. "Any allergies?" the nurse asks. "Penicillin," I say, and the fact of knowing that feels like a door I can still open. Raylene fills in the parts a stranger can, the place, the mile, the hour, by the trucker's clock. When she catches my eye, she nods a small nod that says, "You're here." That's all it says. That's enough. I don't ask her to stay. She doesn't say she will. She sits in a chair by the vending machine with a view of the door and the window anyway. A man in a khaki uniform appears where the hallway turns. He is lean the way people get when most of their food has to come between calls haircut. Careful boots that say he has walked farther in them than their shine would admit. He taps once on the door jamb so he won't startle me and shows me his badge. "Deputy Carter Reyes, Jeff Davis County," he says. "Mind if I sit a minute?" I nod. He takes the chair not too close and opens a small notebook that looks like it has been in his pocket long enough to know what it's for. "I want to make sure you're okay first. Nurse says you're dehydrated but lucid. If you want, we can wait." "I'm all right," I say, and hear the truth in it. His questions are simple, practical, designed to build a shape out of pieces, my name and address, the last thing I ate, whether there was a fight, whether anyone saw us pull off the road, what the tea tasted like. I answer in the order he asks. When he asks for the bottle, I point to where I set it on the tray. He opens a paper evidence bag and slides it engloved like a magician making a coin disappear. He asks about a sandwich. I hand him the wrapped rectangle from the bag. "Might be nothing," he says flat, "not fishing. Might be something." "It had a taste," I say, "metal, like old water." He notes it without reaction. "Do you feel safe saying your son's full name?" "Daniel Whitaker," I say, and the sound of it is what it is. He writes it. He doesn't look up to see what it does to my face. "Ma'am," he says, still looking at the paper. Leaving someone out there like that is a crime under Texas law, especially when that someone is, well, I'm going to treat it like a crime. That means the details matter. He lifts his eyes, then not hard, not soft. "You did the hard part already." The nurse brings a cup of ice chips and parks them in my free hand. They taste like nothing and everything, tap water and refrigerators and all the kitchens I have stood in at all the hours where someone needed feeding. I let one melt on my tongue and nod. Deputy Reyes pulls a card from his wallet and sets it on the table by my bag. Carter Reyes sits above a number in block type that means business. He doesn't push it toward me, just leaves it in the universe where I can reach it. "Do you want me to call anyone?" he asks. I shake my head. The gesture feels like the stringing of a line between two fence posts, this one and the next one and the next. Not yet. "Okay." He closes the notebook and stands. "I'm going to talk to the nurse about collecting that bottle in the wrapper. If you think of anything, even if it seems like nothing, tell her and she'll write it down." He pauses 2 steps from the gun. "You're safe here. It's not a promise, it's inventory." When he leaves the room, breathes. I look at the IV bag where a clear, slow river drips into a line and then into my arm. The plastic rustles when the air conditioner sighs. Across the hall, Raylene tilts her cap brim down and pretends to sleep so I won't have to thank her while I'm still trying to remember my own name. On the stainless tray, the edge of my husband's framed photo catches a line of light and gives it back. I pick up the pen on the clipboard and sign the form the nurse has clipped there. My hand shakes once and steadies. Nora Whitaker takes its place on the line. Outside, a diesel rolls past on the highway and fades. Inside, the ice chips crack once between my teeth and go quiet. The numbers 604, 603, 602 move through my head like stations I've pulled away from but still hear on the radio if I turn the dial just right. I lay my palm over the soft rise where the IV lives and let the cold spread. I am not helpless. They slide a warm blanket over my legs and hang a fresh bag of fluid. The IV whispers. The room smells faintly of bleach and orange peels from Raylene's cab that I swear have followed me inside. Deputy Reyes asks for the timeline one more time, not because he doubts it, but because neat edges make good boxes. He takes my phone in a Ziploc and photographs the no-service screen as if it's a landmark. A lab tech with steady hands draws 2 vials of blood, labels them with the date and possible sedative, and passes them to the nurse. Chain of custody makes a choreography out of simple movements. I watch caps click on and signatures bloom, and some part of me that kept the library's genealogy section alphabetized approves. Raylene leaves a card she's made out of a fuel receipt. Raylene I-10 West Monthou. If you need a ride back to San Angelo, someone on our channel will answer, she says, tipping the brim of her cap. She squeezes my shoulder once and lets go like a good knot you can trust. They move me to a curtained room for a few hours. When I wake, the nurse says my vitals look less like a desert and more like a person. The clinic's social worker, Elena, with a braid and a voice you'd give your bad news to, sits down with a clipboard. We can get you to a safe place for the night. The sheriff's office wants a formal statement in the morning. You're in charge. We'll follow your lead. We'll follow your ear. I can talk now, I say, and Elena nods, as if that was always my choice to make. At the sheriff's substation off the highway, the interview room has clean walls and a jar of peppermints sweating in their wrappers. I take one because small sweetness is a fact you can keep. A recorder clicks on. I say my name, my address, the names of my son, his girlfriend, her mother. I say San Angelo and I-10 and US 90, the mile markers like stitches across a wound. 604, 602. I describe the iced tea and the way the second sip tasted like penny jars and summer hoses. I say I am 70. I say I keep my own calendar and my own pills. I say I am not helpless. Reyes takes it in the order I give it, and not a breath out of place. When I finish, he offers water and I take it because my mouth is dry, and the fact of accepting help does not erase the woman who walked. A ranger in a blue shirt I would recognize from a civics textbook stops by long enough to shake my hand and borrow the evidence bag. We'll run that bottle and the sandwich wrapper in Austin, he says, which makes the tea and the neat triangle of bread sound like witnesses with last names. By late afternoon, a deputy drives me to a motor court in Van Horn with a neon saguaro that blinks OTL because the E is out. The room smells like lemon cleaner and last night's coffee. I turn on the lamp that has survived at least 3 bedspreads and set my husband's photo on the table as if we are checking into a familiar place. When I close my eyes, I see tail lights pulling away until they are 2 red insects, and then nothing. When I open them, the room is still here. The lamp still works. The photograph still faces me. At dawn, the phone rings. Ms. Whitaker Reyes, we found a charge at a gas station in Alpine that fits your timeline. Daniel used his card. The clerk remembered his hat. We've pulled the CCTV. There's a timestamp and it shows the 3 of you and the 4th Avery getting coffee and ice. We're pulling pharmacy receipts from San Angelo for over-the-counter sleep aids bought yesterday afternoon. The district attorney's office is looped in. My throat tightens at the arithmetic of it. Coffee for them, tea for me. Do you need me there? We're coming to you. We'll need you to confirm faces off stills. He arrives with a manila folder and a portable printer the size of a loaf pan. We sit at the little table between the 2 beds, and he slides photographs out like a dealer. The gas station's fluorescent glare makes everyone look sleep-deprived and flat. There is Daniel, profile tight, hand over his wallet. There is Avery, a braid over one shoulder, watching the coffee drain as if a future were collecting in the pot. There is a pack of doxylamine on the counter 2 feet away. There is a receipt from Blue Star Pharmacy time-stamped 2:11 p.m. with an itemized line that reads, Sleep Max 1, and underneath, Lemon Syrup 1. There is the faint tilt of 604 on a green sign behind my own shoulder in a pulled-back frame where the car pauses near the shoulder. GPS pings from Daniel's phone, his location services switched on. Like a porch light, he forgot draw a dotted line from San Angelo to 90, with a long unkind pause between. Do you recognize them? Reyes asks, though the question is a courtesy. Yes, I say, and put a finger on each face in turn as if taking attendance. That's my son. That's Avery. He nods and slides each sheet into a clear sleeve. "We're seeking a warrant for your house in San Angelo," he says. "If they're there, we'll find them. If they aren't, we'll find what they planned." By early afternoon, the phone rings again, a different energy in the line. "We have them," Reyes says. "At your house. Boxes open. A printer still warm. We're collecting forged documents, property transfer, a durable power of attorney, with your signature lifted from your voter registration. There are half-filled HELOC forms on the table." He pauses, giving the word space to land. "Avery tried to walk out with your jewelry box in a tote. We stopped her in the driveway." And then, as if he remembered a rule about sequence and mercy, he adds, "You don't need to come. The scene is secured. We'll get you an inventory when we're done." I sit on the bedspread with my palms pressed to my knees, as if I were about to stand up in church. The motel air conditioner hums. The neon outside blinks OTEL OTL. I imagine my blue front door open to air that smells like furniture polish and cardboard, 2 people inside, dividing my life into keep and sell. I imagine the box with the dinosaur sticker my son tried to hide under fresh paint. I imagine their hands on the door jamb where that sticker never really disappeared. That evening, a victim advocate from the DA's office calls to explain charges in a voice that fits a courthouse without echo. Exploitation of an elderly individual, abandonment of an elder individual, forgery, attempted fraud. The judge issued a no-contact order. "If anyone calls you pretending to be from our office, give them my name and make them say it back." She spells it for me twice. I write it on the motel pad under the phone and circle it once the way I used to circle call numbers on a slip for a patron who would be back Tuesday. In the morning, Reyes picks me up in a county sedan with a cracked dashboard and a rosary tucked into the visor. We drive east under a sky lined with contrails. At the courthouse in Fort Davis, they take my statement again, typed this time, with spaces where names will go and full stops where my voice hesitated. I initial every correction like a person who knows her own hand. Reyes reads each page before I sign and says, "Ma'am," the way a son would if he had good parents. They take me back to my house to walk the rooms, while the evidence team dusts and photographs. Blue tape and a paper seal cross the front door. Inside, the air is wrong, the way a room smells after the church supper when all the casseroles have left. On the dining table, my wedding china in 2 stacks, neither tall enough to be right. Beside it, a printer, a laptop, a sheaf of forms titled "Transfer on Death Deed and Durable Power of Attorney," downloaded from the internet and filled out in a hand that learned cursive after the world decided it didn't need it anymore. My name sits there in a stranger's loops, my initials practiced in the margin like a teenager's. "Don't touch," Reyes says, standing back with his palms out as if stopping a child from entering the street. I keep my hands at my sides. I know how to be a good witness. A neighbor, Mr. Taves from 2 houses down, watches from his lawn as we step outside. He raises a hand and lowers it, embarrassed to be alive in my afternoon. "We saw the U-Haul," he says, voice low as a church hallway. "Didn't seem right. My wife called the non-emergency line when we noticed they carried out your books in trash bags." The muscle under my eye ticks once and stops. At the station, they show me a video of Daniel in my kitchen opening the drawer where I keep the return slips and the stamp with the date I stopped stamping. He doesn't look around as if remembering. He looks around as if measuring. When the officer pauses the frame, his mouth is a flat line I recognize from his report cards. When a teacher wrote doesn't show his work. For a second, I remember him at 5 with cake on his face and a paper crown sliding over one ear. Then the second does what seconds do, it passes. I sign a property inventory. I sign a no-contact acknowledgement. A magistrate sets bond over a video link. Marla's name appears in a report as present during planning and then disappears behind pending because planning leaves fewer fingerprints than action. Someone hands me a copy of the protective order on thick paper, the way you print things that will have to live in a purse. Back at the motor court, I set the order under my husband's photo and smooth the edges flat with my hand. The IV bruise on my arm is yellowing into the color of a school bus. I make coffee with the machine that wheezes and gives up and try again until it doesn't. Outside my window, the neon saguaro finally wins its battle with the E, and for a few minutes the sign reads motel the way it was meant to. All the letters working at once. I turn off the lamp and sit with the small sound of the refrigerator and the distant semis heading west, counting each low note until the numbers settle into something I can sleep inside. My front door gives a last click under a blue strip of painter's tape, and I hand over a key that has known my pocket for decades. The realtor's handshake is brisk practical. The paperwork stacks in even piles the way officials like them. I sign my name until the letters look like someone else's, and the house becomes a listing number that will find another family who doesn't know where the floor squeaks under the hall rug. When the moving van closes its ribs on what I kept. The street is the same street, but it no longer has a reason to look back at me. Santa Fe receives me the way high desert does, cool on the skin after sun, thin blue air over adobe the color of bread. My apartment is a second-floor walk-up off a courtyard with a cottonwood that has memorized wind. The door is turquoise paint rubbed smooth by old hands. Inside light falls through a square of glass and makes an honest rectangle on the floor. I set the photograph of my husband on the shelf and a coffee mug beside it as if arranging proof. The makerspace lives in a low building near the railroad tracks where the morning freight rolls through like a long sentence. On the first day, I meet Maya in an office that smells faintly of pine and screen print ink. Her hair is shot through with silver in the deliberate way of people who keep it that way on purpose. She shakes my hand and looks at me like I am a volunteer and not a problem to solve. Book arts, she says. We've been waiting for someone who knows how to make paper behave. I know a few tricks, I say. The studio has cement floors and rolling tables and shelves with jars that hold the old unshowy magic bone folders, awls, beeswax, linen thread. A book press sits in the corner like a patient animal. On the wall, a pegboard holds chisels and a small hammer with the handle polished by whoever loved it before I did. A fan ticks along the ceiling as if keeping time for us. The first class is 6 teenagers in hoodies and thrift store coats, the boys pretending not to care, the girls letting themselves care in quick glances when they think no one sees. I write signatures on the whiteboard and draw a stack of nested folded sheets. We sew these together, I say, and then they become something that stays. A boy with a skateboard tucked under his chair, Louise, asks if he can make his cover out of cereal box cardboard. You can make a cover out of anything that listens, I tell him, and his grin is as quick as a light switching on. We pierce holes with an awl using a jig I cut from chipboard. I show them kettle stitch how the thread remembers the path once it has walked it 2 or 3 times. Fingers pick up the rhythm and drop it and pick it up again. Beeswax leaves a faint honey on the air. Someone's phone thumps a beat. Somebody else turns it down without being told. The spine tightens. The text block closes on itself with a hungered neatness. Ben stops by the door at the break, a man with forearms that belong to the welding bay and a voice like gravel put through a strainer. You're the book lady, he says as if it were a title. We're running a shop skills clinic next week. If your kids want to rivet something that won't fall apart, send them my way. They're not mine, I say. They are while they're here, he says, and tips his chin toward the room where Luis is gluing a spine like he's negotiating a truce. My days find a new sequence. Morning light on the adobe wall, coffee at a table that came with the apartment, and one leg that needs a folded menu under it. The walk to the makerspace past a courtyard where someone strings prayer flags between vigas. Afternoons smelling like ink and paste. Evenings with pinon smoke catching in the scarf I keep by the door. When I can't sleep, I listen to the freight drag its weight through the dark and think of maps I-10 crossing sand and scrub US 90 with its clean arithmetic tracks drawn toward a horizon that doesn't apologize for being far. Sometimes I think of Raylene and her clean cab saints, And then a postcard appears at the makerspace picture of a bridge in Louisiana on the front. Keep your water slow, R, on the back in block letters that would get her a library card anywhere. I pin it to the corkboard by the sign-in sheet. The letter from the parole board finds me on a Tuesday afternoon when the air smells like wet newsprint because someone is pulling prints in the next room. The envelope is thick, the seal polite. It addresses me with all 3 names as if to be sure it has the right woman. I read it standing up with one hand on the table edge. Mr. Daniel Whitaker has applied for early release. As the victim of record, you are entitled to submit an impact statement and to participate in a restorative justice conference facilitated by a certified practitioner. The date is 2 months out. The time is given in a tone that assumes clocks can do what they're told. I place the letter under the small press not to hide it, but to keep it from blowing away. When the kids arrive, I teach them how to make a pamphlet stitch and do not mention chords. At the end of class, Luis asks if he can stamp a word on the cover of his notebook. What word, I ask? Miles, he says, and when I hand him the set of letters, he lays them one by one with a care that would make any word true. Maya closes the studio and walks with me toward the parking lot that isn't mine because I don't drive much now. She kicks at a pebble that thinks it belongs in the doorway and doesn't. Are you okay? She asks, the direct way women ask each other when they have run out of small talk. I got a letter, I say. She waits. Parole, I say, and that is the whole sentence. She nods once and doesn't reach for my arm because she knows what not to do. If you want a witness when you write that statement, I can sit in the next room and make tea I won't drink. I might take you up on that. The facilitator calls the next morning from a number that looks like a real office and not a trick. Allison Hart, she says. Voice steady in the way of people who have walked strangers through rooms no one wants to be in. I'll be guiding the conference if you choose to attend. It's voluntary always. You decide what you say and what you don't. We'll set ground rules. We'll keep them. No surprises. No, I like rules that keep, I say. We'll meet beforehand, she adds. I'll answer questions. You won't be alone. I write her name on an index card and tuck it under a magnet shaped like a red chili ristra. The apartment is quiet enough to hear the clock apologize for every second it can't return. I pull a blank sheet of soft pencil in the good eraser. Instead of words, a rectangle appears where a cover might be a spine where signatures might fall. I draw thread passing through paper and coming back on itself a loop at the edge that makes a knot. No one sees when the book is done. Later in the studio, a girl named Tasha asks why we wax the thread. Because it moves smoother, I say, and because it doesn't fray when you ask it to do a hard thing. She nods like this is a fact she can use, and maybe it is. She drags the wax along the linen and holds it to the light to see what changed. Ben installs a new vise on a table that needed one. The metal sings when the bolts seat. From the print room, someone pulls a clean sheet with a black coyote that looks like it knows exactly where it's going. The fan ticks along. The book press sighs when I turn the wheel. I write mile markers on the studio calendar as a joke to myself no one else will get and erase it because calendar space is for things other people need to see. In the evening, the sky drops to its knees and turns the kind of red that makes car alarms think about their purpose. I stop at a grocery where the clerk calls me ma'am in a voice that doesn't take anything from me. At home, I measure flour into a bowl and butter into the palm of my hand until it learns its shape. The oven warms the apartment to something that smells like other years when other people came to my table without knocking. When the pie is out and the kitchen is clean, I take the letter from under the press and read it again. The sentences are still the same. The date has not changed. I slip the letter back into its envelope and slide it between the pages of a blank book I have not started yet. I turn the light off and stand for a moment in the rectangle left on the floor by the window, the place where morning will find me, because that is what morning does. The freight calls down the tracks with its low iron patience and works its way past each car, a box with a destination printed in small letters on a sheet nobody reads. I set the book on the table and lay my palm on its cover until the fiber listens. Then I take up the bone folder crease the first sheet and begin. Allison books a room in a church basement where the tile is clean and the chairs don't wobble. She arrives early with a box of tissues no one plans to use and a legal pad she never looks at. She sets the chairs in a circle and leaves 2 empty not for symbolism, but because the room is bigger than the people in it. She gives us rules that fit like well-cut clothes. We speak. In turn, we use names. We describe actions instead of motives. We stop if anyone needs to stand up and breathe. Maya sits behind me, not in the circle. A presence the way a wall is a presence, support without instruction. Daniel comes in with a parole officer who knows how to be invisible. He is thinner than the last time I saw him, which was home, which was not. He wears the kind of shirt men buy when they mean to look right. He sits down with both feet planted as if learning to drive a clutch. He does not look at the empty chairs. Allison nods once to each of us and begins with water-level facts, so the room can carry them, the date, the county, the chapter of code the charges live under. Then she opens her hands toward me. Ms. Whitaker. My name is Nora, I say, because I like the way it lands by itself. I tell the room the mile markers as if they were the axis of a map, 604, 603, 602. I tell the taste of the tea's second sip and the way the light left the land like a tide going out. I tell what the road felt like in my shoes, the sound creosote makes when the wind decides it has something to do. I do not say what I think about greed. I do not say what I think about forgiveness. I say the numbers and the acts that followed them. When I am done, the room holds still in the way of rooms that have listened. Allison tips her head to Daniel, Mr. Whitaker. He breathes like a man about to put his face in cold water. I left my mother on the shoulder of US 90 east of mile marker 604, he says, not reading. Avery and I planned it. We meant to make it look like a mix-up. We drugged her tea with over-the-counter sleep aids so she would be less resistant. We forged documents to move her house into our names. We were at her kitchen table when the deputies came in. Each sentence is a piece of furniture he carries to the center of the room and sets down where everyone can see it. He names Avery. He names Marla. He does not hand them the heaviest box. Allison waits. Who was harmed? My mother, he says. Our neighbors who had to watch a squad car at her curb. The people who raised me. The county that had to spend the money it spent. The woman who stopped and helped my mother. He does not know Raylene's name. He calls her the truck driver. He names himself last. What has changed since Allison asked not for promises? I took the classes that were offered, he says. Anger management is what it was called, but it felt more like a class on honesty. I work kitchen at the unit when they need me. I read to 2 men who never learned to read, and one of them can follow a bus schedule now with his finger. A chaplain got me on a wildfire mitigation crew one weekend in Ruidoso. Hand tools, only cutting line hauling brush. My hands remembered to work when my head kept wanting to talk. He stops and then adds without looking up, I don't ask my mother for anything today. Allison turns to me again. Nora, what do you need to say to him that you haven't said? The words are already stacked in me. I take them in the order I built them. You put me in the road, I tell him. You opened my drawers and decided what I didn't need. You turned my name into a signature you could move around. You do not contact me unless the order says you can. If the board lets you out, you rest your life on work that isn't about me. You pay restitution with hours and with dollars until the sheet is bounced as far as it can be. My voice doesn't rise. It lands where it's supposed to land and stays there. He nods once the way a man nods when the foreman points to a pallet and says that one. Allison draws the circle smaller with 2 questions. What does accountability look like, and how will we know it's happening? We write answers that fit in a box that will later live in a file, verified hours with a wildfire restoration crew, a completed course on exploitation of elders through the community college that runs it, restitution payments the first small, the rest on a schedule, a boundary that has a street map attached to it, a prohibition on contact without a victim advocate's say-so. None of it fixes a road in the dark or the taste of metal on my tongue. All of it holds together. We finish. Allison thanks the room for doing the work the room was built to do. I stand and feel my body remember how to be mine after an hour in a hard chair. Daniel looks at the floor as if it has instructions. I say his name because it is true and mine to use. He lifts his head and nods. We walk out into the air that smells like wet concrete because someone just hosed the walkway. Maya falls in step with me. We do not talk until we are at the car. When we do, it's about whether the grocery will still have decent cantaloupe at this hour. The parole hearing lives on an upper floor in a building with flags out front and a metal detector that speaks in polite beeps. The panel is 3 people who have practiced the art of listening without leaking. A court reporter's fingers keep their own pace. When it's my turn, I read my statement without decoration. I say the miles and what they took from me, the way my house sounded when a key turned, the plaster fingerprint of a boy's hand under the paint on the door jamb, the kitchen drawer arranged for someone else's reach. I ask for conditions that will not require me to be brave to feel safe. I ask that his community service be with the crew's rebuilding fence and reseeding where fire burned the hills to bone. When I sit, a woman on the panel asks if I need a break. I shake my head. They listen to Daniel. He does not sell. He does not cry. He says the circle's rules out loud as if reminding himself where the edges are. The parole officer reads the plan we made in the church basement as if it were a recipe. The board votes in the careful way of people who know the weight of their hands. Parole with conditions, restitution enforced by schedule, community service specified by name, a protective order that draws lines thick enough you can see them on a bad day. We stand. The chairs rustle, the clock looks exactly like every clock in every waiting room in this state. Months move the way months move. The makerspace adds a rack for drying prints and a habit of opening the windows when the monsoon brings the kind of rain that smell remembers. Luis stamps miles on a new cover because he liked the sound of it the first time. Tasha teaches another girl how to wax thread without snapping it. Ben shows up with a cinnamon roll the size of a dinner plate and says it's too much sugar and then eats half of it with a fork he carries in his pocket. I put a show on the calendar because Maya tells me to. Mile markers, the flyer says, in clean type hand-bound books and paperworks by Nora Whitaker. We hang covers on the linen line with wooden clothespins. We put a long table down the center with the teenagers' books stacked in new spine cereal box board, beside marbled paper linen thread, beside fishing line kettle stitches neat as hymnals. A woodcut coyote from the print room gets a corner. The door opens and keeps opening. Raylene sends flowers in a mason jar with a card that reads, "Keep your water slow, R," in those same block letters. Maya tucks the jar into a place where the petals catch the light and make a little noise when the door brings air in. When the crowd has its own conversations, I see Daniel at the back near the exit. He stands with his hands behind him as if reminding them not to reach for anything. His parole officer is somewhere in the room, not at his shoulder. He looks at a book whose cover is nothing but the number 604 blind stamped in the lower right corner. He does not touch it. He does not look for me. When he turns to go, we pass each other's line of sight, the way cars do at a 4-way stop, a small flicker of acknowledgement, both of us braking enough to let the other move. After closing, Maya brings me an envelope. "This came to the front desk," she says, tapping a corner of it with one knuckle. Inside, there's a newsprint clipping with a photograph of men in gloves carrying cedar posts across ground the color of rust. The caption reads, "Volunteers restore fens in Big Bend after wildfire." Paper clipped to it is a note on lined pad paper. "I'm learning to carry what I'm given D no return address." The paper smells like dust and the inside of a glove box. I slide the clipping into a book where a pocket belongs and close it. The room smells like glue and Pinot and the last of the coffee. The teenager's laughter has cooled into the air. The linen lines sag a little under the weight of the evening and then lift when the door catches a breeze. When I get home, the apartment is the size it always is. The turquoise door admits me without remark. I set the flowers on the table and the envelope under the press. I pull a new sheet of paper and fold it to find the grain. It breaks right the way good paper does. I thread the needle and run the linen through the wax until it shines. The first hole goes where it should, then the second, then the third. The stitch remembers itself. The knot hides the way it is supposed to inside, doing its work, not asking to be seen. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.